"You're not invited this year. It's just easier for Dad." That was the message. It came on a gray Thursday morning, tucked between 2 work emails and a grocery store coupon I didn't remember signing up for. The sender? My younger sister, Laura. Soft-spoken. Always the messenger. Always just passing things along. I read it twice. No greeting. No punctuation. Just that flat, familiar phrasing our family uses when pretending things aren't cruel. I stared at my screen as the group chat buzzed in the background. "Cigar stations confirmed." Rick's speech is gonna make Dad cry. Alston's covering the first round of wine. No mention of me. Not a single tag. Not a single, "You coming?" Just silence, followed by erasure, wrapped in politeness. I should have expected it. Last year's birthday ended in what Mom called an uncomfortable moment, which meant I brought up Grandma's name during the toast. The toast I wasn't supposed to give. The toast that, apparently, shifted the energy. So this year, they fixed the problem. They took me out of the equation. No drama, no tension, no me. I stared at my sister's message a moment longer, then typed back, "Understood," and closed the chat. The irony? I was already in town. Had flown in a day early. Booked a quiet room at a downtown hotel. I hadn't told anyone. Not because I was planning something, but because I wanted to see. Would they even remember I existed? Now I had my answer. And oddly, it didn't hurt the way I thought it would. It settled into something else. Something colder. Something clearer. Not sadness, not anger. Just a simple, silent question. How do you celebrate a father? By erasing his child. The first time I noticed the shift, it was small. Dad had a follow-up cardiology appointment. I offered to fly home to take him. He told me not to bother. Said Rick had it covered. Rick, the brother who forgot birthdays, forgot anniversaries, forgot that Dad hated jazz until 5 years ago. But he was local, polished, and he wore the right kind of watch. After that, it snowballed. Group calls that used to include me started happening without me. Plans were already made. Decisions were taken care of. All I ever got were updates, summaries, like someone receiving minutes from a meeting they were no longer invited to attend. I started noticing phrases. From Mom. From Laura. Rick's really stepping up. Rick's been such a rock for Dad. They never said I wasn't. They just stopped including me in the list of people who were. What stung wasn't the absence. It was the quiet ease with which they rearranged the family, like moving a chair in the living room. No discussion, no protest. Just shifted me out of view. I suppose part of it was logistics. I live out of state. I travel for work. I don't drop by for Sunday dinner or help set up chairs at church fundraisers. But I flew home when Dad had his surgery. I stayed up in the ICU waiting room for 2 nights straight. I was the one who handled Grandma's hospice care when everyone else said, "I just can't." I never asked for praise. But I thought, foolishly, that it might count for something. Instead, I became a ghost with a phone number. Mom still sent Christmas cards. Rick still copied me on emails when he needed bank statements for Dad's pension. But the warmth, the inclusion, gone. A few months ago, I sent a photo. Me and Grandma. Back when she still remembered names. No one replied. 3 weeks later, Rick used the same photo in a slideshow, with my face cropped out. I saw it. No one thought I would, but I did. And in that moment, I realized something simple. They didn't just forget me. They were practicing a life without me. It started with an accident. A misclick, maybe. My niece, Sophie, sent me a link to a Google photo album titled Dad's 70th, hadn't seen it. I hadn't even known there was an album. I clicked. Out of habit, more than curiosity. The photos loaded slowly. Balloons, table settings, that same cream-colored banner we'd used for Mom's retirement party. Everyone looked a little older, a little more curated. There was a photo of the family on stage, all of them lined up neatly. Rick holding the mic, Laura with her daughter in matching dresses, Mom in pearls, Dad sitting like a king in the middle. I wasn't there. At first, I assumed I'd been cropped, but then I remembered. I had flown in that year. Quietly. Sat near the back. I hadn't been introduced. Hadn't been asked to speak. I came because it was right. I stayed quiet because that's what they said they wanted. I remembered taking a photo after the event. Dad had pulled me aside near the coat rack. It was just the two of us. We smiled. He said, "Glad you came, kid," and squeezed my shoulder. I still had the original photo on my phone. We were both in it. Same clothes, same backdrop. But the version in the album, the one everyone else saw, was different. My side had been blurred, cropped, gone, cleaned. I checked again just to be sure. Compared timestamps, scanned the edges. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a bad angle or a casual oversight. Someone had deliberately removed me. My face. My presence. My place in the family story. I felt the same kind of stillness I'd felt in that hospital waiting room during Dad's surgery. That cold, distant hum when you realize something irreversible has happened, and no one else seems to notice. Except this time, they noticed. And they did it anyway. They didn't want my absence to be awkward. They wanted it to be permanent. Easier. Cleaner. A version of the family that didn't include the daughter who didn't smile the right way, or make the right kind of small talk. They weren't just forgetting me. They were curating around me, designing a timeline where I'd never existed. And for the first time, I saw it not as neglect, but intent. A week after I saw the edited photo album, I called Mom. I didn't bring it up directly. I just asked how planning was going for Dad's upcoming birthday. She said it was coming together beautifully. Rick had been so helpful. Laura was taking care of the decorations. I asked if she needed anything from me. She hesitated, then said, "We just want things to run smoothly this year, that's all." I asked what that meant, but she pivoted, talked about the caterer. It was the same one Rick's company used for their holiday party. "Very elegant," she said. "Not too flashy. Just enough to show we're still doing fine." Then she added, "Mr. Alston offered to help cover some of the wine." And that's when it clicked. Mr. Alston, Dad's old friend from the Lions Club, the same man who gave that long-winded speech at my high school graduation, the one who always brought a vintage bottle to every family barbecue and liked telling people how he and Dad once ran a charity drive that made the front page of the local paper. I hadn't heard his name in years, but of course they brought him in. Alston had a way of adding old-school weight to anything. He made things feel official. Distinguished, legacy-driven. The kind of presence that impressed donors, pastors, insurance men. That word, legacy, it kept circling back. Rick had used it in a voicemail a few days earlier. Dad's not getting younger. This year's not just a party, you know? It's a legacy moment. I let that message play again and again. Legacy. A curated image. A story about the family we wanted others to see. Even if it wasn't the truth. Even if it meant rewriting who mattered. Who counted. Who didn't. The deeper I sat with it, the more I understood. This wasn't about me being difficult. It wasn't even about Dad's health. It was about control. It was about how families, especially ours, protect the version of the story that's easiest to tell at a dinner party. Rick, the successful son who came home. Laura, the sweet caretaker. Dad, the patriarch who raised a tight-knit, respectable unit. And me? I didn't fit. I was the reminder that the family wasn't perfect. That real loyalty sometimes doesn't come with pretty pictures. But what they didn't realize was this. I remembered who funded Grandma's hospice care, who coordinated Dad's rehab schedule, who paid the back taxes on the Willow Lane property. They almost lost. They forgot because it was convenient, but the records never did, and neither did I. That night, I found Mr. Alston's number, still listed in the old landline contacts on Mom's email signature, under holiday cards. I stared at it for a while, then called. His voice hadn't changed. Warm, slow, measured, like he was still used to speaking at banquets with no microphone. "Well, I'll be," he said when I introduced myself. "Haven't heard your voice in years. Thought you'd show up last year, but someone said you had a conflict?" I let the silence answer. Then he chuckled softly and said, "No matter. We're doing it right this year. Big space, nice setting. Your dad's proud, you know. Said he hopes you'll surprise everyone." That line sat heavy. Dad hoped I'd surprise them? Or had Alston made that up to be kind? I didn't correct him. I just asked if there was a seat left. "Of course," he said. "We've got a head table, but you know how I feel about those. I'll put you by the cake table. You'll have the best view of the whole room, and you can slip in quiet like always." I thanked him, asked him not to mention it to Mom or Rick. He paused, then said, "Understood." The plan wasn't dramatic. No microphone, no confrontation. I just wanted to be there, to see it unfold with my own eyes, to see how far they were willing to go to pretend I didn't exist, and to remind them, gently, quietly, that I did, that I still carried the parts of this family they'd tried to forget. The late-night drives, the hospital bills, the house on Willow Lane that Grandma left me, the same one Dad once hinted might need refinancing for a family thing. I didn't know the details then, but something told me they'd used more than just old stories to fund that perfect birthday. And if they did, I planned to be in the room when they saw my name was still on the deed. The banquet hall was exactly what I expected. Tasteful, expensive, and trying very hard not to look like either. Cream-colored tablecloths, live quartet in the corner playing light jazz, waiters moving like shadows. On the wall, a banner read, "Celebrating a legacy," in gold script. That word again. Legacy. The air smelled like rosemary and expensive intentions. I slipped in through the side door Alston had arranged. No one noticed. No one looked twice. That was the benefit of being forgotten. You moved like a ghost. I took my seat near the cake table. Just like Alston promised, I had a clear view of the entire room. My name wasn't on the printed seating chart. Of course not. But my presence didn't require ink. Rick was in the center of it all. Shaking. Hands. Telling stories just loud enough to be overheard. Laura hovered near Mom, adjusting flowers, holding her daughter's hand for photo ops. Every detail was curated. Guests posed in front of a slideshow loop. Photos of Dad teaching Rick how to fish, hugging Laura at her wedding, shaking hands with former coworkers. Every image told the same story, a strong man surrounded by the people who made him proud. I wasn't in a single frame, not even in the corners, not even in the background. They hadn't just cropped me out. They'd designed around my absence. When dinner was served, Rick took the mic. His voice had that polished rhythm you hear in church fundraisers and campaign speeches. "Tonight," he said, "we're not just celebrating a birthday. We're honoring a life of integrity, commitment, and family values. Our father taught us how to show up, how to give, how to lead with humility." The crowd nodded along, applauded in the right places. Dad smiled, gracious and composed, like a man accepting a Lifetime Achievement Award. The slideshow shifted, again. This time, it showed a family tree graphic, complete with names, branches, and milestones. My name wasn't there. I looked at the tree, then at the man they were clapping for, and then back to my untouched plate. They'd rewritten history. In front of 100 people, and no one blinked. Rick raised his glass. "And now," he said, "I'd like to bring the family up, the ones who made Dad who he is." Mom stood. Laura followed, tugging her daughter along like a stage prop. Guests clapped politely as they gathered near the projector screen. A staff member handed Rick a remote. "Just a few final photos," he smiled, "and a toast to the legacy we'll carry forward." I waited. Let them settle. Let the applause fade. Then, just as the slideshow was about to resume, a waiter stepped up to the microphone and cleared his throat. "Before we continue," he said, glancing down at a small note card, "we'd like to welcome one more guest, a member of the family who's traveled a long way to be here." Every head turned. Silence fell. You could hear the air shift. Stood. Walked slowly toward the front of the room. No rush, no theatrics, just steps. Rick froze. Mom's smile collapsed. "Dad," he blinked, confused, maybe even startled, but said nothing. I reached the edge of the stage, looked at them, looked at the guests, then looked directly at my father. His tie was a little crooked. He always hated when his photos looked too perfect. Maybe that's why he didn't stop me, or maybe he knew something was coming. Rick leaned in, his voice low, tight. "You shouldn't be here. If Dad knew you were coming after everything with the house." I blinked. "What house?" He swallowed, glanced toward the crowd. "Willow Lane. He used it for the refinance. It's how we paid for this whole thing. Said it was still under his name, technically." The breath left me slow. Cold. "He used Grandma's house." Rick's eyes darted. "He said you wouldn't mind. You hadn't been back in years. We needed something big. Something worthy of 75. I turned toward Dad. He didn't look ashamed. Just tired. Like a man who'd convinced himself long ago that he was owed something. Something more than quiet gratitude. Something grand. The same house I'd paid the back taxes on. Maintained, protected. The same home I'd kept in the family. And they used it, without asking. To celebrate a version of themselves I wasn't welcome in. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I just reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small flash drive. Looked at the AV guy. "Play this instead," I said, and I stepped back from the mic. The screen went black for a moment, then flickered. A different slideshow began to play. The room hushed, confused. It started simple. A photo of me and Dad, years ago, repainting the porch at Willow Lane. He's holding the ladder. I'm up top, roller in hand. We're both laughing, hair windblown. The date stamped in the corner, 2008. The next image was in the hospital, me in a plastic chair, holding a styrofoam coffee cup, watching over him as he slept after bypass surgery. A nurse had taken it, said I looked like someone who hadn't moved in hours. Then a picture of Grandma, in her chair, with my hand resting over hers. Her smile faint, almost gone. A video clip faded in next. Dad's voice on voicemail. "Hey kid, just wanted to say thanks again for the tax stuff. I don't say it enough, but I'm proud of you. Really proud. No music, no titles, just truth." I didn't turn around to watch the room. I didn't need to. I could feel the tension shift behind me. The polite version of the family had cracked. The performance was over. This was the part they hadn't rehearsed. I stepped forward once more. Took a slow breath. My voice didn't tremble. "Since the house was part of this party, I said. I figured I had a seat. A beat passed. No one moved. Legacy, I continued, isn't something you write on banners or print in gold foil. It's something you live, something you honor, quietly, consistently, when no one's watching. I let the silence hold. I didn't come to shame anyone. I just came to remind you. Legacy remembers who was there when it was inconvenient. Then I looked at Dad. He didn't say a word, just stared at the screen as it faded back to black. For the first time all night, the room stayed quiet. No one clapped. No one raised a glass. No one asked for a group photo. They had nothing left to perform. I didn't stay for dessert, didn't wait for someone to come running after me. No one did. I walked out the same side door I'd come through, past the valet, past the cars lined up under soft amber lights. The night air was cooler than I expected. Clean. I stopped under one of the trees by the edge of the lot, the same kind Dad used to rake leaves from every fall. I didn't feel victorious. Not exactly. Just steady. Like something had finally settled in my bones. A kind of stillness that comes when you stop needing to be seen by people who refuse to look. Mr. Alston caught up with me in the parking lot. He didn't say much, just pressed his hand to my shoulder and said, "That was the most honest thing I've seen in that family in a long time." I nodded, eyes still on the road ahead. He asked if I needed anything. I said no, then smiled. "Actually, maybe just a copy of the program. I think I paid for it." He chuckled softly. "You did more than that, sweetheart." I got in my car. No music, no calls, no one to explain anything to. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel erased. I didn't come back for their applause, just for the part of me they tried to forget.